You can move the wake maintenance zone. Okay, some babies who have a later bedtime, their wake maintenance zone is a little later, say, than a baby who has an earlier bedtime. But keep in mind too, we have daylight savings time coming up, and we're going to be moving the clocks an hour. That's more than 30 minutes. So it's unlikely for most babies that this will be a transition that can be made in just one day. You want to be careful that you're not putting your baby, that you're not working against that wake maintenance zone. Okay, so again, just an illustration to show you that there is a period of time right before your baby's typical bedtime where it's actually difficult for them to fall asleep. The only thing I will say with this is if you've had just a bomb of a day, terrible naps, a baby sick, that can trump the wake maintenance zone. And then, yes, you can go extra early with your bedtime. But on a normal day, you keep your bedtime within the same 30-minute window. If you try to go earlier than 30 minutes, you're going to be in wake maintenance zone. It's not a fair expectation for sleep. Okay, so 9 to 15 months, your typical sleep length babies, virtually no night feedings are needed. Occasionally, a family will have a situation where it's working really well. Like baby is waking just quick around 4:30 or 5 o'clock, having a nice quick feeding and going back to bed. If everyone's happy with that situation and it's working and sleep is well consolidated on both sides of that feeding, that can work. But really, for the most part, no night feedings are needed at this age. And I actually am very conservative with night feedings. I'll always be the last one to tell you to drop a night feeding. But even I say by 9 months, you really should be expecting a nice full night of consolidated sleep.
Also, there's quite a range of ages that we're talking about here. So an 8, 9, 10-month-old may still be doing that 3 or 4 a.m. breastfeeding. And you may begin to address it, or it may move away on its own at 10 or 11 or 12 months. So we're talking about the 9 to 15-month-old baby. That's an 8-month range there, which is a really long time.
You're right. Yep. Thanks, Nancy, for clarifying. Okay, so naps. Naps are always on everybody's mind. Um, Daytime sleep for the baby taking 2 naps a day averages 3 hours. Okay, but by the to 2 naps to 1 nap, and as you move towards age 2, the daytime sleep totals will drop. That's normal. From 3 hours for a 2 nap a day baby, when the nap consolidates to 1 nap a day, it may become a 2 hour nap. And if it's a nice solid 2 hour nap and your baby is having a nice long night of consolidated sleep and baby's acting well rested, that's no problem. Basically, when you, let's see, I'm going to go through this more specifically in another slide. So the highlights for this are going to be that with any nap transition, the baby's bedtime will shift a bit earlier to help make up for some of that lost sleep. You don't have to shift it a whole hour earlier to make up a whole hour if you're losing that daytime sleep. Even just a 20-minute earlier bedtime can help. The total, sorry, I'm just seeing Kara ask a question. 3 hours, you're right. The total sleep is 3 hours total for the 2 naps. So maybe 1 nap is 1 hour and 1 nap is 2 hours, or maybe both naps are an hour and a half, or you have some sort of combination like that going on. When your baby drops from 3 naps to 2 naps, that last window of wakefulness of the day becomes the longest. I often tell people, think of it sort of like almost like a ladder. The first window of wakefulness of the day is the shortest. From the time your baby wakes up to nap number 1 is usually about 2 to 2.5 hours. The second window of wakefulness of the day, between nap number 1 and nap number 2, is about 2.5 to 3 hours. And that last window of wakefulness of the day is about 4 hours, maybe more, maybe less, depending on the baby and how much night sleep they're getting. This is should I ever wake my baby? And we like to put this in there because, some parents really feel strongly against this, that I should never, ever, ever wake my baby. And the answer is, okay, if you have a lifestyle where that works for you and you don't have to wake your baby and you're still able to get predictable bed and wake times, then that's awesome. No, you don't need to wake your baby. If you are like a lot of families who have to be, out the door for a pickup or a drop off, or you have to be up at a certain time in the morning for daycare, then you may be in a situation where you would have to wake your baby from a sleep episode in order to protect the timing of the next sleep episode. So it's perfectly fine to wake your baby when you need to. The only time you wake your baby is to either draw out a schedule if you don't have a schedule at all, or to protect the schedule you're trying to maintain. Remember that 30-minute window. Circadian rhythm doesn't handle shifts more than 30 minutes very well. So if your child is oversleeping beyond 30 minutes beyond her typical nap time, you will be in a situation of knowing that you're going to then affect the time of the next nap time.
Meg, I have a question about waking the baby. Do you have any recommendations as to specifically how to do that? I often use an euphemism, I call it putting away the laundry, where you gradually, kind of increase the environmental arousal around the sleeping baby, like you're opening and closing a drawer, you open the blinds to let the light in, gradually making a little bit more noise and activity around them. But what do you recommend?
If you wait until you feel like a child is in a lighter state of sleep and more easily arousable, you could do that, but the timing might not work exactly with what you need to do. So, when it's getting to be around your normal, like, okay, I've got to be at pickup in 20 minutes, I have to get the baby up, then you go in, you make a little noise, maybe you turn down the white noise machine a little bit, maybe you open a curtain or a shade. Like Nancy said, put away some things in the room and just sort of bring the noise level up gradually. So you're trying to have the most natural wake up you can. Great. Thanks, Nancy. Okay, so this is the next slide is my favorite slide of all. And those of you who saw this last week, I hope you thought this was as cool as we think it is. And remember, this is something that you're only going to see here. And what this is, okay, so I'm going to give you a little background. The next thing you're going to see is a sleep plot, okay? When we do sleep consults, we give this graph when we call it a sleep assessment. It's really helpful to us in having a quick visual of the type of sleep your baby's doing. It's also really helpful to parents. They can see their progress in just a really stark way. It's very cool. But what you have, if you look down on the bottom, in the next graph, what the parent has done is they've shaded in their boxes when their baby is asleep, and they've left their boxes blank when the baby is awake, okay? And they might shade half hours or quarter hours, so you might see little hatch marks sometimes. Basically, the very last line on the left-hand side is 4 a.m., and then we have 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. So the baby's morning wake with the white boxes, baby's afternoon nap, stretch of wakefulness, more white boxes, and then the baby's bedtime. Okay, so the end of the day is actually sort of halfway through this whole graph. So on the next page, you're going to see what I'm talking about. This is sleep during the first year. This is so cool. You can see all the way up here on the top left, this is newborn baby. It is all over the map. Day is night, night is day. There's no rhyme or reason, and that is perfectly normal. You remember you all just survived that not too long ago, myself included. And then, around 10 to 12 weeks or so, you start to see the first little consolidation. Ooh. Did you do that green arrow, Nancy? The first little consolidation of night sleep happening. Cool. Oh, yeah, I can.
See if you can move
Awesome.
it around.
So
Can
you
you
start
move
to
it?
see this baby
You
starting to
can.
have a little
Okay.
bit of
There you go.
consolidated night sleep here in about the 3-month range. And then as you get down to 4 months and 5 months, now you start to see, especially over here, all right, this baby has a nice regular bedtime, a long stretch of night sleep. We're going to flip around here to the morning. This baby's having a little wake up here, a regular morning time, and then 3 nice naps. Isn't that awesome? Down here, you see it gets a little erratic, perfectly normal. 3 naps merge into 2. And then, this is the first year, so this baby doesn't go as far as transitioning into 1 nap. But this helps you to see also here. I just want to show you here. This baby's bedtime moved earlier when the 3rd nap disappeared. Okay, this is a really, really classic, nice graph here. Okay. So what happens during months 6 through 9? I think we backed up a little. We're starting. So basically by 9 months, if it hasn't happened for your baby by 9 months, those of you who have maybe a 7-month-old, 8-month-old, 9-month-old, you are starting to think that you want the 3rd nap to baby will take that 3rd nap, and then bedtime is getting really late, and then baby's not getting enough night sleep overnight. So as you approach the 9-month mark, you may want to see this nap drift away, the bedtime shifts earlier, and what you end up with is a little less daytime sleep and a little more nighttime sleep. For working parents who aren't getting home until late, they're probably going to try to hang on to that 3rd little snooze, maybe in the car on the way home from daycare, so they have a little more time with their baby in the evening. But you still do need to think about the realities of what time do I have to be up in the morning, and is my baby getting enough nighttime sleep? Remember that 10.5 to 12 hours of nighttime sleep is average. Okay, night feedings will gradually disappear. And I know we say that as if they'll just naturally go away all on their own. They might not. And if they don't, remember, we are going to do a webinar about how to wean night feeds. Just please don't stop your night feedings cold turkey. It's not good for you if you're nursing. It's not good for your baby. So I will fill you in how to do that. But if you're ever going to stop a night feed, you're going to wean it down slowly. Okay, months 10 through 12. This is a pretty stable time for baby. Night feedings are no longer necessary, so now would be an opportunity to work on having those night feedings disappear. You're stabilized nicely with a morning nap and a midday nap. Remember that the first window of wakefulness is usually the shortest. For 10 to 12-month-olds, that window of wakefulness may creep up to last window of wakefulness of the day, you can see, is the longest, and that's pushing in on 4+ hours. Again, depends on how much night sleep baby is having. Generally, babies, the average age to transition to a single nap a day is 15 months. So if your baby is under 12 months, I would really try to keep the 2 naps from happening as best you can. Once you move past 12 months, if your baby's showing signs, then you may think about the transition. But just know that 15 months is the average age to transition to a single nap. What you'll start to see is you'll probably notice that either you put your baby down for the morning nap and it starts to not happen. It starts to shorten. Baby's really rolling around the crib and playing a lot, falls asleep late perhaps. So that would be one scenario, that the morning nap is starting to sort of eliminate itself. And then the other scenario would be the morning nap stays nice and strong, but then you start to find that you are hard pressed to get an afternoon nap if your baby takes a morning nap. So if you're seeing some of these signs and your baby is around 15 months old, then you're probably ready to make the transition. Transitions can take several weeks. If your baby's young, closer to 12 to 13 months, it could even take a couple of at first, that morning nap maybe, or that midday nap may be more happening more like late morning. Like maybe you put your baby down at 11 for a few days, and then you try to push it to 11:15 for a few days, and then 11:30. Your goal is to have that nap happening really in the middle of the day. You sort of want to balance between your morning and your afternoon. Your morning may be a little bit shorter. Your morning wakefulness may be a little shorter than your afternoon wakefulness. Or the reverse, your morning wakeful might be a little longer than your afternoon wakeful, but you want to try to avoid having, say like a 7-hour morning and then a 3.5-hour afternoon. You really want your nap to be sort of balanced in the middle of your day. And when you're first making the transition, you may find, okay, hey, my baby had a great nap from 11 to 1, but now that's a long way to go before bedtime. So don't worry if your baby has a little snooze when you're out and about running an errand or taking a walk, or you just sort of nursing, hanging out on the couch or something like that. That's okay. A little snooze during a transition time at the end of the day to tide your baby over to the bedtime, that's fine. Just remember that you do still want to try to maintain a regular bedtime. So you wouldn't want to have, long, late afternoon naps happening when you're in a transition phase, because that will push your bedtime late. And remember, it starts to desynchronize the circadian rhythm. So in general, when you transition from the 2 naps to 1, your bedtime will push in earlier. Okay, so when you put it all together, you are making sure you're cueing baby's body clock with light and dark. Dark when you want her to be asleep, light when you want her to be awake. Sleep environment, we have talked about before, rooms always cool, rooms always dark, rooms always quiet, using a white noise machine. These are things we've talked about in the past webinars. Think about the schedule that's appropriate for your baby. Are you on 2 naps a day? Are you merging to 1 nap a day? What's the window of wakefulness between my naps? Now that my baby's getting older, do I have enough wakeful time between my naps? And try to keep your naps regular. Keep your bed and wake times regular in the same 30-minute window to keep your circadian rhythm synchronized. Okay. I think we had talked about toddlers, but I think maybe we should do instead.
Let's see. We'll take a couple questions, and next week is next week the week you're going to begin to talk about the night feedings, Meg? Right. Okay. So I think we're going to talk about how to gradually diminish the nighttime feedings, and just like we avoid the word sleep training because it means different things to different people. Meg does use the term night weaning or weaning the feeds, but I think that sometimes means different things to different people. So what we're talking about is the gradual and gentle elimination of the metabolic expectation to receive multiple calories. Majority of their nutrition during normal waking hours, more or less. Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, well, let's see. And of course, all of these recordings are archived, and you can access them anytime or share them with your friends. And please do help spread the word about the webinars, and put it on your calendar so you come back next week. And of course, if you would want personalized information, we do have a fabulous team that Meg helps lead up, so you know that you're getting great advice. I know we have about 8 or 10 questions sitting in here, and we're not going to be able to get to all the questions today. So if you feel like you would like to spend an hour on the phone having your own particular sleep issues addressed, that's why we're here, and that's why we have our sleep support program. Okay, Meg, let's take this question from this mom of an 11-month-old, and I think that might be all we get to, because I know that you have a consult to take shortly after this webinar. Okay, so this mom says her 11-month-old is sleeping well through the night after a lot of work, but wakes early, often before 5 a.m. The bedtime is 6:30 or 7, falls asleep without much fussing, takes 2 naps during the day, and what can she do to try to get the baby to sleep later? And to clarify, let's see, since she's had the earlier bedtime, it does seem like he's sleeping slightly later. This morning, baby didn't wake until 5:20, which was an improvement. Yesterday, it was 4:30. And, I always struggle with this, but will daylight savings change help her? But then again, it's a month and a half away, so that's just too long.
It sounds like you have that last window of wakefulness is the longest of the day. You have well consolidated sleep overnight. So, on paper, I would say, okay, you're getting about 2.5 to 3 hours during the day. You're getting maybe about 10.5 to 11. You are falling within the parameters of enough sleep for an 11-month-old. However, you think your baby is tired. You think he seems tired. So, you can't really bring the bedtime in much earlier than 6:30. A lot of parents go too far. I shouldn't say too far. You can go how you're comfortable with, but if your bedtime becomes so early, like 6 p.m. or 6:30 p.m., by 5:30 in the morning, that's 11 hours of sleep. That's a darn good night. He might be done. The sleep pressure, the drive to sleep is so low at that time of the morning after much sleep that any type of sleep work or intervention you wanted to do at that time. Okay, what's the environment like? Is it dark enough? Is it quiet enough? Do you have a habitual feeding happening at 5 a.m.? Have you been turning on lights at 5 a.m.? So if there's anything like that that might be contributing, you'd want to make sure the environment was perfect. And then you would basically say, all right, I'm trying to get an extra hour. So you would want your son's little body to be in his sleep environment for the extra hour in the dark, cool, quiet room. What you do during that time is going to be up to you. Do you want to stay in there with him and be super supportive and be offering a lot of soothing and always trying to put him back into his crib awake? Do you want to be checking in and out on him? Do you feel like less is more? There are a lot of different ways you could handle that part of things. But basically, it's about, for that last hour, sort of showing him in the way that you're comfortable with that you'd like him in bed later. That's it, kind of in a nutshell, Nancy.
Okay. Yeah, I know none of these, much like the breastfeeding questions, they're not always as simple as they may appear. I've noticed in the Q&A box, we have a lot of questions about daycare, sleep,
Yeah, the
and
good thing
the
about
sleep environment,
I just want to give these
different
moms
types of
tools,
sleep
something. I feel bad. The good thing
patterns
about
where the
daycare is
daycare
that
may want to
babies
move the
are
child to go
really
one
good
nap
at
when
compartmentalizing
the
their
baby is doing
sleep,
2
day
naps at
sleep
home,
compared
things
to
like
night
that.
sleep. A lot of babies sort of, it's like when in Rome, do as the Romans, and they will start to sleep better. If your baby's having a problem at daycare, it may be due to the environment. And so you may have to take a really hard look. What can you do? If you offered to send in a white noise machine, would they put it under your baby's crib? If could you ask for your child's crib to be moved to the farthest corner of the room away from everyone else? Do they have any blind windows that they would let you get a quick fix, like a $5 Ready Shade from Home Depot, and send in some darkening shades? So things like that you would want to think about. What can you do to improve the environment? If your baby does not nap well at home either, then you may have to look at sort of stepping back and doing a little nap work. For a daycare and home nap, if it's a daycare and home nap issue.
Okay. All right. Well, we do need to wrap up. And Meg, thank you so much for your information today. I will get this up on the website later today, so if you missed any portion of it, you can listen again. And please do join us next week. And those of you that are breastfeeding moms, please remember that every Thursday at 12 noon, we have a breastfeeding chat with a similar format. And this Thursday, I will be speaking about travel and pumping. So it's particularly helpful for moms that will be traveling for business. If you are needing to fly with your baby or with your breast milk and pump, that's what we'll talk about today on Thursday. Okay, everybody have a great week. I hope you get some rest.